ערב טוב, שלום לכולם, ברוכים הבאים. היי טים.
היי, ערב טוב.
אז אני מאוד מאוד שמח ונרגש לפתוח את השידור הזה. אני אשמח ממי שנמצא איתנו כבר במאזין, אם תוכלו לתת איזשהו עוד חיים שנוכל לראות שאתם איתנו, אז אני מזמין אתכם לכתוב את השם שלכם ומאיפה אתם בארץ או בעולם, וככה שנוכל לדעת מי איתנו. אתם כותבים את התגובות בתיבת הצ'אט שיש לכם, אמורה להיות לכם בצד ימין, ובתיבה הזאת מעבר לזה שתרשמו כרגע את השם שלכם ומאיפה אתם בארץ, אני אשמח גם שתשלחו לנו שאלות תוך כדי השיחה, הרעיון הזה, ואנחנו נתחיל. אני מעריך שאנחנו, הרעיון ירוץ משהו כשעה, אנחנו עוד רגע נעבור לאנגלית, ואנחנו מאוד מאוד שמחים להיות כאן. אז אני עובר, היי טים, how are you?
סליחה, לא עברית. I'm doing well. I'm having fun.
Good. So I'm I'm really excited to have this conversation. You know, we've did a couple of them in the past, but this one, especially for me, it's quite exciting because it's an, I think, a topic that is in to all of us and that will impact the quality of life of everyone in Israel. And I see that people are already started to write that they are here with us. You obviously see it in Hebrew, but you can trust there's real people out there.
I'm sure they'll have lots of fun questions for us before we're done.
Yes, so I'll just congratulate them. אז ברוכים הבאים אורנה מיבנה, ואסתי מירושלים, ואילנה מרמת גן, ואריאלה, ברוכים הבאים, ולכל מי שכאן מצטרף. So, Tim, I'll say a couple of words of my, you know, how I got to know you, and, you know, your impact on my life, and then I will let you introduce yourself as well. So I think the first time I met you was probably 6 years ago or so, something like that.
Something like that.
Right. Actually, I think I even a year or two before we didn't met, but I was in one of your events that you held here in Israel about True Purpose in Glilot, if you recall. And time later we met and we sat and we talked and. You know, they're saying when the student is ready, the teacher shows up, right? So the first time we met, you showed up, but I wasn't ready.
So I had to come back.
So yeah, I think it took me something like 3 years or so to get ready. And then we started to work together, and I actually guided me and took me through a long process of finding my purpose and all of what it's about. And this really had a tremendous impact on me and my business, my activities, on everything, pretty much of, I would say, every aspect of my life, because it's not just finding my purpose, it's also the connection with my trusted soul, and the tools that I got through the process are very, very powerful. This is, you know, how I got to know you, and I'm very grateful for you for that. And it's a good opportunity to say that as well now.
Thank you.
So thank you. So I'll let you introduce yourself.
Good. Yeah, so I've been coming to Israel since 2009. I'm getting some speakers picking up the microphone. So I don't know if you have earbuds or something nearby or what you can do about it.
Yeah, I'll try to fix it.
Great. So I've been coming to Israel since 2009. Came in September 2009, led a purpose workshop there. One of my students from California actually moved to Israel and created a workshop in Israel, and I came to Israel and led it. And in that meeting, there were a bunch of people there, including some pretty high-level leaders who have stayed involved with me and with the purpose work ever since then. And over that time, we've expanded it from finding the purpose of individuals in Israel, which we're still doing. We'll be doing that next month. To finding the purpose of organizations in Israel. I'm actually in the hotel room right now So I'm in San Francisco. I live in Berkeley, right? I'm in San Francisco, but this is a hotel room of a CEO of an Israeli high-tech company. He's a client of mine and found his purpose and found his company's purpose. And so we're getting together. We got together today and had breakfast to talk about the purpose of Israel. He's interested in getting involved in the project. He was very impressed, thought it was a great idea. And so I've worked with politicians, I've worked with CEOs, heads of NGOs, ministers of Israel, Knesset commissioners, members of the Knesset, people in the Department of Education, all sorts of folks from across Israeli society. And about, I guess it was maybe a little less than a year, a little more than a year and a half ago, got the signal that it was time to start working on Israel's purpose. And I really see this as a way of creating a better world, but there's lots of other good reasons to do it that we'll talk about besides my own personal purpose. But it's very purposeful for me to find the purpose of Israel. And it's actually a unique intervention. Like consultants like me, we think of things in terms of an intervention. What's the thing I could do? What's the lever I can pull or the button I can push or the person I can influence that will cause the system to shift into a better state? How do I get that to happen? And I know you as a business coach think about that, Eran, when you're working with your clients and you're looking at how they're running their companies. What's the key strategic act that they could do that would really take their company to the next level, right? So I'm thinking about that for Israel. And this seems to be the answer. So I've been very fortunate to work with people, leaders from all over the world, but I have a particular focus on Israel. So, and just in terms of a little more background, I'm a math geek. My degree's in theoretical math from MIT. I spent 23 years in the Navy. I was a commanding officer. I spent many years in Silicon Valley as a high-tech leader. I worked at Oracle Corporation, had my own database consulting company. So I'm a sort of practical, methodological kind of guy. This doesn't sound like a practical project, but we're going about it in a very methodological way and expect it to have very tangible results when we're done. So there's a little introduction.
So I know one of the questions that probably many folks here and others who heard about the project is, and I told you before we started that I'm going to ask you tough questions tonight.
Oh, come on. You're not just going to lob me a bunch of softballs around, take it easy on me? Oh, come on.
Well, you knew what you got into when you started getting involved with Israelis.
With Israelis, should I expect anything different?
So, and I guess that's one of the questions that comes to mind. People who hear about this project here in Israel is, what's the deal? Comes this American, tells us that we need a purpose. Once, starts to do all this kind of processes here in Israel.
Who is this guy? Who does he think he is?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what's the deal?
It's interesting. I'm one of very few non-Israelis involved in this project. The vast majority of them are Israelis. The reason so another question I get a lot is, are you Jewish? And the answer is no, I'm not Jewish.
This would be my second question.
Right. Some people have taken to calling me an honorary Jew, which I find very touching. But no, I'm not Jewish. And there's a couple different answers. So one is that I think a lot of stuff has been tried, and certainly there's a history of Americans with solutions coming to Israel and mucking things up. I'm following in some very talented, famous footsteps.
Not necessarily good experience.
No, I said messing things up, right? Coming there, we have the answer, showing up and making a balagan, right? So, I'm not actually coming with a solution, interestingly. I'm coming with a method. And the method is a method that Israel can use to find its own purpose. I'm not Israeli, I'm not Jewish, it's not my place to tell Israel what its purpose is. But the thing I'm known for and famous for in business circles and in growth and development circles is a very particular methodology for finding the purpose of things. So in the same way that, you know, if my tooth hurts, it's my tooth, I'm responsible for it, but I get a dentist, right? I get someone who's an expert on teeth to help me with my tooth, right? If my plumbing is all busted, I hire a plumber to help me with my plumbing. In theory, I could do it myself, but I may not have the specific expertise on how to solve that particular problem. And so that's the thing. I'm a specialist. I'm a tech guy, right? I'm a technologist, and my current technical expertise is technical expertise in the area of how to find purpose. And in particular, I can help Israel find a purpose that all Israelis are aligned on. And that's very important because, as you know, Israelis will argue about anything and everything. What's that saying? 2 Israelis, 10 opinions, or something like that? There's
something like that, yeah.
Something.
It depends on which day you check. Could be 10, could be 15.
Certainly
depends
more
on the
than
day.
2. For sure more than 2.
Definitely more than 2.
It was sort of a multiplier there, which is the multiplier varies. So, so getting Israelis to align on stuff is not trivial, right? That requires good process. And so if we wanted to get a bunch of Israelis in a room and argue about Israel's purpose, that process would continue as long as we were willing to do it, right? That would go on.
We know to do that perfect.
Know how to do that perfectly, but that will not result in a.
Teach you how to do that.
I'm sure you can improve my skills at arguing about things. But that's not a process that will converge on a single answer that people will align on, right? So if you want to argue about your purpose, go at it. And, you know, I mean, let's face it, it's been going on for a few thousand years, right? It's not like it hasn't been tried. So if we want to align on a purpose, I have a widget, a tool, a technique that can be used to do that. And I think that's important, like having all Israelis be able to say, yes, this is our purpose. I think that would be a substantial accomplishment that would have a lot of benefits for Israeli society and for the future of Israel as a country, if we could pull that off. So for that, the thing that's primarily needed is expertise. And I happen to have the expertise, right? There's also some benefit to having an outsider involved in the same way that, you know, if you have a family fight or something like that, you don't hire the therapist who's like one of the family members, you hire an outsider to do it. Because you want someone who's not stuck in the same thinking and caught in the same dynamic as the people who are having the issue. And I'm not caught in the dynamic. I'm not part of it. And so when I come to Israel, it's fascinating to me. I can see beliefs and perspectives that are unique to Israel, that everyone in Israel holds, that people elsewhere don't, that are invisible to the Israelis, because everyone has that point of view, right? And it's never discussed and never questioned because it seems to be universal. But because I'm neither Israeli nor Jewish, I don't share that point of view, and it actually makes it easier for me to see it. So that's a second reason why that it's useful to have a somewhat, I mean, no one's completely objective, but a somewhat objective outsider to be the guide or facilitator of this process. And the last reason, which is my favorite, is that God has a sense of humor. Why not send some random goy to find Israel's purpose? That'll be fun. I wasn't sure who got disconnected, so I kept talking to could have been to an empty mic, I don't know. Said some great stuff. Whose internet went down?
It got you the opportunity to practice. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened, but we got disconnected, and actually everyone fell off, and now they're starting to come back. So I just sent an email.
Because I could see the chat, I could see how many people there were. It said you had left the room, so I thought maybe I was the only one still on, and just kept talking to the group. So, you know, I don't know. I don't know if this is
for all of us. Anyway, people are starting to come back. I just sent an email, so they will log again. Just to answer some questions. כן, תהיה הקלטה של השיחה.
So I think we ended on God has a sense of humor.
Yeah. And I think maybe you upset him, so we disconnected us.
Hold the plug, you know.
Okay. I was just saying that you mentioned these processes, and we'll talk about them in a second again. And I just wanted to say that I had really the privilege to participate in some of the sessions, and it was quite amazing to see how a group of Israelis from all kind of belief systems, opinions, different aspects of the Israeli society. We had religious people. We had people who for them religious is the opposite of in life. We had the men, we had women, we had young people, we had elder people, we had all over the place. And within a few hours of the process, it was amazing to see that we were able to come up as a group to an agreed definition for Israel's purpose. I must say that I was skeptic at the beginning, but as probably most of
Israelis are. I mean, we did this whole year of testing specifically for this reason, because all the Israelis this couldn't possibly work, right? That this process might work everywhere else in the world, on all people and all organizations in all countries, but it won't work in Israel. So we had to test it and demonstrate it. And it worked exactly as we expected.
So yes, this was really interesting to see. So I wanted to ask him, so why you obviously think it's important, obviously since, for the last 2 years, you keep coming to Israel a couple of times a year, and meeting a lot of people in Israel, business people from the government, leaders from all levels in Israel here. You invest a lot of your time and money in this process, and why do you think it's so important that Israel would have a purpose after all? Aren't we good enough like this? What's your take?
I love you just the way you are. As Ram Dass, who's actually a Jewish guy from Brooklyn, says that everything's perfect exactly as it is, including my desire to improve it. So I think Israel's great. I think that most Israelis would agree that everything's not perfect and ideal, that there are some things that could be improved. And one of the things I was saying to the empty microphone, unless there were people listening, I'm not sure, was that from my perception is that there's increasing fragmentation in Israeli society, that as time goes on, the internal divisions between different groups of Israelis are getting more and more deep and hostile. From outside Israel, the visible problem is the issue between the Israelis and Palestinians. From inside Israel, there's all sorts of conflict that's got nothing to do with the Palestinians or nothing to do with the Arabs. My concern is that Israel could self-destruct sometime in the next 20 or 50 years. And my perception from observing things kind of at a psychological level is that the glue that holds Israel together is fear of Israel's enemies, right? That they're out to get us, they're out to destroy us. We have to band together or we'll be killed. That's the thing that binds the society together. And fear is dangerous glue to use to bind something together. It's not psychologically healthy. It doesn't do well long term. And it's just sort of papering over these deep divisions that have not really been reconciled. So a thing I say, and it's not really a joke, is that if Israel's neighbors wanted to get rid of Israel, the fastest way to do it would be for all of them to declare peace with Israel, become Israel's best friends, and start conducting trade with Israel. And then Israel would destroy itself, right? They could just, and they could offer to help, right? So, well, you look like you're in bad shape. Can we help you? Right? If that fear weren't there, I don't know that the country would be able to hold together. And I see symptoms like Israelis getting foreign passports for their kids, as a safety measure, which to me looks like a vote of no confidence in the country's future. Or the thing you and I have discussed, Eran, that when I ask Israelis, and you and I did this exercise, what's Israel's positive future? They can't answer the question. Interestingly, your community is the only time that I ever asked that question and got a really clear, positive response, which is greatly to your credit. I asked them as a group and I got a bunch of answers, and I was like, finally, after like 8 years, somebody can actually answer the question, what do you want for Israel's positive future? No one else could answer the question. They couldn't say a single thing that they wanted to see better in Israel's future, which is, you know, scary to me at a psychological level, that there's no vision, no hope, no positive, you know, aspiration for the country. And the purpose that Israel's had is all backwards looking. It's about creating a homeland for the Jews. Well, that was achieved in 1948, right? So now what? You've got it. Here it is. Congratulations. Now what? What I get, the information I get from my own purpose and from my trusted sources, is that now is the time to answer this question. Now is the time for Israel to find its purpose. And I'm doing it in part selfishly, because I believe that if Israel found its purpose and manifested it, that would create a better world for everyone. And it's very interesting, Eran. I can say this not only to Israelis, but to people in North America, South America, Europe, Australia. All I have to do is say to them, Israel has a higher purpose and it's not doing it. And they nod. And I say, Israel has a mission to change the world. And they nod. No justification, no explanation, no nothing other than that. And Jews and non-Jews, it doesn't matter who they are, people would just go, huh, yep, that's right, that's true. And so the world, one of the things going on is that the world is frustrated with Israel for not living its purpose. And I think Israelis are frustrated.
So you have an interesting perspective on that. You know, it came up in one of our conversations that, you know, what you said something in like what you call you know, anti-Semitism that towards Israel is basically the world trying to tell you, the country, that you should, you know,
get on with it, buddy. We're waiting. I was talking to this Israeli CEO whose hotel room I'm in at the moment over breakfast. I was talking about this and I said, imagine you're in your house and the toilet is running over. There's like sewage running out onto the floor. And you go out to the front of the house and there's the plumber sitting there smoking a cigarette. And you're like, dude, get in there. Get to work. The toilet's overflowing. He's like, yeah, I'll get to it later. You know, like imagine your frustration. Like, here's the problem. Here's the guy with the solution, but he's not playing, right? He's just going to sit there while the sewage is running out on your floor. In some ways, I think about that. Now, this isn't to say that Israel is responsible for the world's problems. That's not what I mean at all. What I'm saying is that Israel has part of the solution, but it's not bringing the solution to the table. Right. And this always, so whenever we do these Purpose of Israel meetings, two things always come up: Tikkun Olam and Orla Goim, right? And people get their heads all wrapped in knots, chewing and wrestling on it. The religious folk don't have trouble with it. The non-religious folk get all, you know, like trying to struggle and wrestle with this stuff. And the Orla Goim in particular really pisses people off because it sounds so...
Just repeat it in Hebrew. I'll just repeat it in Hebrew, so I'm not sure that everyone got what you said, okay? מה שטים הסביר פה זה שבחלק גדול מהתהליכים בקבוצות שנעשתה כבר עבודה של ייעוד ישראל, עלו שני מוטיבים מרכזיים מאוד חזקים שהיו חלק מהגדרת הייעוד, שזה תיקון עולם ושתיים אור לגויים. שזה מן הסתם מונחים שהם מוכרים לנו היטב.
Every time. And the secular folks hate Orla Goim because it sounds so arrogant, right? Now, you know, and I know, Eran, that the best, most accurate purpose statements always sound arrogant. Because you find the higher purpose of people in your community, and I find the higher purpose of my community. And when a person says, oh, no, that can't be right, that one's way too arrogant, I'm like, aha, ding, we have a winner. Right?
That's the one.
That's the one. So I have to explain to them, and I'm a goy, right? So it's easier for me to explain this. This is part of the sense of humor bit, where I say, well, why is Orla Goim okay? Why is it not arrogant to say that we're supposed to be the light to the Goyim? And here's the answer. So imagine for a moment that you're in a dark room. All the lights are out. You're with a bunch of people. No one can see. people are like looking for the door, trying to get out, trying to figure out what's going on, and you've got a flashlight in your pocket. Okay. And people are saying, oh, what do we do about this? Now, you don't want to be arrogant and turn on your flashlight and be the only person in the room with a flashlight. So you keep the flashlight in your pocket and you keep it off, okay? Because you don't want to position yourself as being better than everybody else. So after a little while, eventually people find the door and open the thing up, and you know, now we've got light in there and stuff. And then someone goes, hey, wait a minute, isn't that a flashlight in your pocket? I say, well, yeah. It says, well, you had that flashlight in your pocket the whole time? Yeah. Why didn't you turn it on? You could have made things so much easier for everybody if you just turned on the flashlight. Well, I didn't want to seem arrogant. Hey, you had a flashlight. This is what it looked like to me. You guys have the flashlight. Now, you may be happy about that. You may be sad about that. I don't care. You've got the flashlight. We need the light. Turn it on. Right? It's that simple.
Okay. Okay. So maybe we can, you know, I can talk about, you know, how we see this process going. So,
yeah.
You know, how you know, what needs to happen between like today and I'm not sure how many years forward. So like a couple of years ahead, we can say that is the purpose.
Well, actually, someone asked me. This was the husband of a minister asked me this. He said, if you had $11 million, how long would this take you? And I said, well, I think it would take somewhere around a year and a half to get the whole thing done. Like, because it's good. Some of the things that we need to do just take a certain amount of time. It's not simply a matter of funding. But basically what needs to happen is this. So the various different groups within Israeli society and the Jews in the diaspora, for each of those groups, let's call them stakeholder groups. Like, these are people who care about Israel's purpose. So each of these different stakeholder groups has to have a sufficient subset of them contribute information towards Israel's purpose. A couple percent of each of these groups, right? So we need Sephardim, we need Ethiopians, we need Russians, we need Ashkenazim, we need secular Jews and religious Jews, and a couple different types of religious Jews. We need left and right politically. We need Druze, Arabs, and Christians who are Israeli citizens as well, right? So there's all these different like slicings and dicings of Israeli society, including the Jews in the diaspora, all of whom don't necessarily agree on anything, but all of whom have a legitimate stake in Israel and its future, right? Bedouins. I mean, it's just, the list goes on and on. So if each of those groups had enough people contributing information to the purpose, then they'd be more likely to accept the result of the process, right? If they get excluded from the process, then the natural response would be to reject the solution, the answer that the process yields. So we have to get them to participate. So we need PR money and money for trained facilitators and stuff to go into these groups and engage these people. Given the numbers of people that we need at least tens of thousands, ideally hundreds of thousands of people to participate. We don't need millions. It'd be great, but we don't have to have millions of people participating for this to work. To reach those numbers, we need to do this electronically. So we've started the design of an app that people can put on like Android or iPhone or on a web browser. And they can sit down, and in about an hour or two, they could go through a simplified version of the true purpose process and access their own intuition and contribute information to Israel's higher purpose. And then we'll have lots and lots and lots of input to process and go through and turn into purpose statements, right? And we're very good at that. We know how to do that part of it. But the issue is getting enough people to participate. While that's going on, we need there to be a public conversation about Israel's purpose. We need TV interviews, newspaper and magazine articles, politicians and other leaders talking about this, so that the attention of Israel is on this issue, this question of its higher purpose, so that when the answer comes out, people are ready to hear it. It can't be a surprise, right? People have to know that the process is going on, and they have to be given an opportunity to participate. And by the way, because we'll be doing this online and via apps, there'll be people who aren't Israelis and aren't Jews participating as well, which is not a problem. It's actually in Israel's best interests to have people from Europe and Asia and the Americas who are neither Israelis nor Jews participate in the process, because those people then become stakeholders in the nation of Israel and in Israel's purpose, right? Israel would like to have more friends in the world and fewer enemies. This is one of the ways to get that. At the point that we have that purpose, and you're right, that'll take a couple of years. At the point that we have that purpose, then comes the question of how do we make the different aspects of Israel and what it does and how it does it more aligned with the purpose? And that's a whole other phase of the project we don't need to worry about right now. Right now, we're just worried about creating the purpose itself. It'll also bring up fears about Israel's future that need to be dealt with as well, right? Oh no, if we manifest our purpose, the following bad things will happen. Just like you and I do with our clients, Eran, when people go to manifest their purpose, we have to help them identify and overcome the fears that keep them from being successful at manifesting the purpose. That process will happen as well. So right now, the thing we most need money for is we need money for the app development, need money for the public relations, and we need money to train facilitators to do this process, because I can't do it in Hebrew. And thus far, all of the meetings have been facilitated by me. And there are people like you and others who are skilled at the true purpose process who could lead meetings like this, right? Like I'd love to get you out there with Chabad leading some Purpose of Israel events. I think it'd be awesome. So there's all sorts of things that could be done. But at this point, it's really expanding the reach of the project to involve more and more people. That's the phase we're at now. We're done with the testing phase. The testing was absolutely successful, and we're ready to scale up.
So actually, you had the similar experience in Colombia.
Yep.
Working on the purpose of Colombia. So maybe you can share a bit of how did it go there, and
Yep.
What were the outcomes, and what was your experience with that?
Yep. So we did do a similar process in Colombia. We started it a year or two earlier than Israel's purpose. So they've actually met with more people and had more groups, and they've gotten frankly, more government leaders involved than we have in Israel. We've had some in Israel, but they had government ministers and people who negotiated with the narco-terrorists and stuff like that. Very, very powerful, high-level government people involved, as well as many different people from all walks of life in Colombia. So we've had like 8 groups in Israel, totaling a few hundred people. They've had like 18 groups in Colombia doing that. And the same thing happened there as here. No matter who was in the group, no matter how violently they disagreed about various different things, they would always align on a purpose. They would always be inspired and feel hopeful about that purpose. And the different purposes that the different groups found were very similar. Sometimes the wording was extremely similar, almost identical. And the same thing, by the way, has happened in Israel. The different groups found very similar purposes, even though they didn't know what the other groups were doing. But the Israeli purposes are very different than the Colombian purposes. They're not the same, which is also what we would expect. And so they're now at a transition point where they too are ready to scale their process up. And the Colombian team is working on how to get funding and how to scale up in the same way that the Israeli team is right now. Interestingly, some of the people involved in the Purpose of Colombia project actually went on to lead the process of negotiating with the terrorist groups in Colombia and created a peace deal, so that now the FARC and the ELN and these other terrorist groups that have been fighting in the jungles for decades are now, the country's now focused on reintegrating them into society. So they've actually ended their conflict with their terrorists, and they're looking for how to employ them, how to deal legally with what's happened, right? Do some of them go to jail or not? How do we do that, right? If we take a purely punitive approach to it and just send everybody to jail, they'll probably go back in the jungle and keep fighting, right? But if we just sort of ignore everything that's happened, that doesn't really work either. So they're trying to figure out what's the right tone to strike to heal the psychological and emotional wounds that have been created by all the stuff that's happened. And how do we find these people day jobs so that they don't become criminals, right? Because now we've got all these people who are trained to use weapons. That's their skill, right? And we can't have them homeless, right? They'll start robbing banks. So these are the problems they're dealing with now, which from my point of view are much better problems to be dealing with than worrying about walking outside of your house and getting shot or business people being afraid of their kids getting kidnapped from their school and held for ransom. I mean, it was really nasty there for a while. So I don't think that the purpose of Colombia didn't directly create that outcome, but the people who we involved in the process and connected to trusted sources and knew that purpose went on to create those outcomes. So, that's a pretty big outcome.
Nice, good. So actually, you mentioned it before, and I wanted maybe to elaborate a bit about that many of, or most of the people who are involved in this process and leading it are actually Israelis. So maybe we can talk about it a bit.
Yeah. So we've got Doron Libstein is on the board of the nonprofit that's overseeing this. He was a CEO of MSN Israel, worked at Microsoft for many years, and he's a chairman of Tapuz and has his own company, Mentors Channel, that brings mentors like me to Israel to speak and do workshops. Debbie Candley, who's a military person, and Yossi Morgenstern, who's a healer. He's got a center in Kfar Shmaryahu. These are all people involved in the Purpose of Israel project. We also have Marcia Weeder, who's an American Jew, who's a very skilled enroller and fundraiser, and you probably know of her through the transformation industry. So these are the people who are doing the real work on the ground, and creating the strategy and coming up with the crowdfunding campaign and all of those things. And so it was that group of people who decided to start with a global crowdfunding campaign, and then we'll do some kind of Israeli specific campaigns after that. But we want really, there's so many people around the world who love this idea and really want Israel to have its purpose for various different reasons. Interestingly, the evangelical Christians in the US love this idea. They think it's great. They're a very interesting crew. But there are other people who, for reasons having nothing to do with religion or anything else, just want Israel to have this. Like we got this really touching message from this older woman in like Norway or something, who said, I'm not Israeli, I'm not a Jew, I've never been to Israel. How can I help? I was just so touched. There's people all around the world who wish Israel were having an easier time of it, and are looking for any way they can to help that makes sense to them, and find that that's invisible to Israelis. Israelis have this sort of unconscious belief that everybody hates them, and it's really not true.
I guess and it's not different than everything you get to see or watch on the news. You would never see the emphasis on good news. You will only see the emphasis on bad news.
Right.
So it's
same here. The media doesn't.
What you get, what you hear on the media all the time is all the people who hate Israel and who try to hurt Israel and so on. You don't see all the other stuff.
Well, that's what gets people glued to the television, right? Is the imminent destruction of Israel. I've never seen any country use the words existential threat so often in day-to-day conversation. It's like everything's an existential threat to Israel. And Ram Shmeli is very eloquent about this. He says that there are three groups of people who have a vested interest in Israelis believing that things are far worse than they are. One is the terrorists, who are few and not powerful, but have to appear as if they have a lot of power. Right? They don't really have the capacity to destroy Israel. If they did, they would have done it already. Right. That's one group. The second group is the media, as you just said, right? Which is if the media can convince everybody that everything's awful, right? That they could die at any moment, they can get people to pay attention to the media. So you get more viewers, right? We did this in the US with the media focused on Trump all the time. It's part of how we got elected, was the media couldn't stop pointing their cameras at Trump. It was like an addiction. Right? Hillary would be giving an active speech, and they would point all the cameras at an empty microphone where Trump was going to speak later. It was just shocking. And the third group is the politicians, right? Who want the populace to be afraid to get them to keep them in power, right? So you're in danger, and we will keep you safe. Vote for us because only we can save you. But all of those groups have a vested interest in keeping things dangerous, right? If everything were great and people didn't have to worry, that would be bad from the point of view of the media, the terrorists, the politicians, right? And in a way, as I said at the beginning, that creates the fear that holds the country together. So if they just stopped suddenly, that might not be such a good thing either, right? We need to have better glue to hold the country together before we can stop using fear as glue. And that's, I think, the purpose is that glue.
Okay, good. You can see you have a question there about, it's a follow-up question about Colombia's purpose. So, you know,
I can't see, I haven't figured out how to show the chat window here.
If you click on the second icon, it's like a bubble.
Oh yeah, there we go. Did we finish the process in Colombia? What is their purpose? We didn't actually reconcile the purpose statements the different groups got, but we got things like about love and healing. Colombia is the heart of the world. It was a lot of stuff about love and healing. In Israel, the purpose information tends to be more about Israel being a model for the world, elevating human society to the next level, things like that. We got one great one was Israel is meant to be a model of forgiveness for the world, which I thought was very interesting. So I don't want to say their purpose is this one thing, because like in Israel, we don't yet have enough Colombians involved to be able to declare a winner and have it be accepted. So even though we have enough information that we could do that, there would be so many people left out of the process. If we declared a winner now, it wouldn't be fair to them. But that gives you a rough idea of what it is. It's about love and healing and forgiveness in Colombia, and slightly different in Israel.
Okay, good. So you mentioned that there was starting a crowdfunding campaign, I think 2 days ago. Actually, so first of all, I will put a link for people who can get the link to the crowdfunding campaign. And second, I want to talk about this campaign. So what is it for? What the money will be used to, and how this will help advance Israel's purpose project.
Yeah. So up till now, I've been coming to Israel on my own dime, paying my own way there, and we've held the meetings in houses of people who volunteered the space for us, which is great. But doing it that way, it will take forever, right? I can't afford to just keep flying to Israel I'm not a wealthy man to keep doing it for free. And we need Israelis leading these processes. It can't all be me. So we need to train people as well. This has to be a visible national conversation. Cannot be something that's happening off to the side. Like there's, just another little NGO working with a few hundred people. It's got to be big. We have to have several percent of the Israeli populace actively engaged in the process. Now, actively engaged could mean 2 hours of their life. That's fine. But they have to sit down and contribute actively to the process in some way, giving money, giving data, something. So in order to do that, we need the technology, we need the app. We have the people lined up. We've started on the spec. We're creating the design. We know we could have the app up and running in a few months if we could pay the developers. That's one. And the app would allow anyone to sit down and in an hour or two contribute to Israel's purpose. You would be able to do it and we're also going to build in the true purpose process for individuals into the app as well, which means when you're done contributing to Israel's purpose, you can, as a bonus, find your own purpose in life, right? Using the same methodology that Eran and I use with our clients. So you can go through that process and get your personal purpose in life. So we need the money to develop the app. The other thing we need the money for is the public relations. I have a wonderful public relations person. It's her day job. She charges money. So we need to get TV interviews, newspaper, magazines, right? People to be interviewed and talk about and start a conversation about the purpose of Israel. And it's got to be a sufficiently, ideally, I would want the politicians to be debating about Israel's purpose. That's what would tell me if we were being successful. If they'd be arguing about what Israel's purpose was and arguing about whether it was a good idea to find it or not and arguing about whether this was a good time, right? I would be so happy. if they were doing that, because that would really raise public awareness of the issue of Israel finding and living its purpose, if they did that. So we need the public relations services to be able to do that. The woman we have charges very reasonable rates, but she charges money. And the third thing is to be able to train facilitators, Hebrew-speaking facilitators, to be able to lead Purpose of Israel events with Israelis while I'm not here, right? So those are the three main things we need money for now. And we need a couple of staff, but that's just a minor thing. There's a few people who are working as volunteers that we need to pay. If we had that, then we could take it to the next phase, which is this outreach phase, where we could start targeting and reaching out to these various different stakeholder groups, involving them, directing them to the technology, holding meetings to explain the process to them and engage them in the process, and start to collect the data. And we have plenty of volunteers who can process the purpose data and convert it into purpose statements and test them, so that we can, it's interesting because it doesn't matter, like if a minister or the president or somebody contributes purpose information, it gets treated exactly the same as the person who's working at Starbucks, right? They go into the exact same process to go through this testing, and then we get this voting process where fewer and fewer statements eventually filter up to the top, and now we have a short list of a few hundred really powerful purpose statements that people generally are now voting on and saying, "Oh my God, that one there, that just makes my hair stand on end when I read that out loud. Oh my God!" Right? So this is what will happen. So that's what we need the money for, and we'll make all of our financial stuff transparent. We'll just put up Google spreadsheets or something that anyone who contributes to the process can just go and look. And if people go to this URL. The Indiegogo campaign, you'll see there on the right.
If you want, we can share the screen and show it.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Share the screen. If you go to this Indiegogo page, it's igg/at/POI or something like that. igg.me, I think it is, /at/POI. That page, there's a there's a very thorough explanation of the project and the process and how it works. And yeah, there it is. And then, I think it's igg.me, not igg/me.
They have the link. They have the link.
Okay, great. Okay. Eleanor put something in the chat there. Eleanor, I think you got it wrong. Good, there it is. So down the right-hand side, there's this stuff. If you give certain amounts of money, you will get cool stuff, right? You get the app, you get a True Purpose book, you get coaching with a trained True Purpose coach, you get to participate in a workshop or go to a conference. There's a Purpose conference going on in a few weeks. Lots of cool things. You could spend a day with me if you want. There's all kind of different things that you could do that we would give you in exchange for your donation. So lots and lots and lots of cool stuff. But most importantly, by donating money to this campaign, besides helping Israel find your purpose, you're becoming part of a team of people who is creating Israel's purpose and creating a better world, a better future for Israel, but a better future for the planet as well. Because Israel's purpose touches all of humanity, right? It's not just for Israel, it's for the world. So you can see we've already raised a couple $1,000s. Our goal is 80,000. We've only been at this a very short time. And let me say, Eran, that I think you may know this about crowdfunding campaigns, but many people don't, which is if you give today, if you give early in the campaign, it actually makes a much bigger difference, because the campaigns that succeed are the ones that people give money to early in their process. I don't care if it's 10 shekels or 50 shekels or whatever. Any amount helps. Having more donors and more money in the first days of the campaign will make the campaign successful. If you were to give the same money 2 or 3 weeks from now, it wouldn't have nearly the same effect as if you were to give it today. Mm-hmm. So read through that stuff, see if any of it appeals to you. And if you've worked with Eran for a while and you have a trusted source, check with it and ask, is this something I should be involved in? Should I be contributing information to Israel's purpose? Should I be contributing money to Israel's purpose? Is it purposeful for me personally? And please follow your guidance, whether that leads you to participate or not. Yeah. Good.
Okay, perfect.
We're very excited about that. because we want people from all around the world rooting for Israel and rooting for Israel's purpose. That's why we're making this a global campaign and not just an Israeli one. So.
Great. So I just want to remind people that if you want to ask questions, just type in the chat. If you're good with English, type them in English so Tim can see them directly. And please do go to the link to have a look at the campaign. And as Tim said, if you want to be part of that and you want to to help that, then doing it now is making much different for the campaign and for its success. I think the campaign went live yesterday.
Yeah, it's been like a day and a half or something. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. Anything else, Tim, you want to share with the people here about any kind of last thoughts or words you want to share?
Yeah. So I guess one thing I want to say is that this is an unusual strategy. It's different than most of the things that have been tried. But I think that's a good thing because most of the things that have been tried haven't worked. And I think we need to do something different. And most of the
Einstein's saying about it, right?
Yes, that's right. Doing the same thing, expecting a different result, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I feel very strongly that the purpose of Israel will create a pathway forward for Israel to a better future for itself. Because right now, Israel does not have a clear pathway forward to a better future. Right now, the best most Israelis are able to hope for is the status quo. And the status quo is good, but it's not great, right? There are definitely problems and issues within Israel and between Israel and its neighbors that could for sure be improved. And this is one of the most interesting side effects we see from people helping us find Israel's purpose is a renewal of hope. That they come to these meetings feeling hopeless, not seeing anything that could help, and they leave the meeting feeling hope. And they come divided, and they leave united. And I think that's very powerful.
I just want to share about what you just said. When we did a separate exclusive session for my community with you about Israel's purpose, and there were about 60 people in the room. And as I said, from all parts of Israel, from the left, from the right, from the middle, all parts of Israel. And it was really amazing to see how within a couple of hours, the energy in the room completely, it was very high energy, energy of consensus, of people agreeing with each other. Seeing a shared vision, seeing a shared goal, seeing a shared purpose, and it was really amazing until today. People still mention this experience.
Yeah. And it's people say, well, it's high level. Is it practical? Is it whatever? The purpose can be used in highly practical ways. Eran and I both use our purposes to make money and to market services, right? And to help our clients, right? It's absolutely can be used practically. The process of finding it sometimes feels impractical. That's okay. I don't care about that. The purpose itself is so useful and has such potential to create solutions that are invisible if you don't have the purpose, that I think it's perhaps the most practical thing we could be doing for Israel right now. So many other avenues are blocked. So many other strategies have come to a halt and have stopped. And things are getting worse. And I think they could be much better. And this is the only strategy I've seen that can really create true unity within Israel and help Israel find a path forward to a better future. So please, find it in your heart to join us, to contribute, to participate. And ideally, for you, this is an opportunity to participate in something that touches the whole world And those sorts of opportunities don't come along every day. So if you're a change agent and you feel called to create a better world, this is a very simple, tangible thing you could do today to create a better world. So please join us.
And maybe last question, Tim. If anyone here who hears that and other than joining the campaign wants to help or want to participate or have connections to high-level leaders or
sure. So you can share this video, share the social media stuff that Eran will put out, share that with other people, share it with your community, share it with your friends. If you have people who are wealthy people who would consider backing such a project, that's the other source we've used for money, is wealthy individuals who write big checks to help us. We've had just one so far. We need a few more. So that would be another thing. And there could be individual leaders, CEOs, heads of NGOs, politicians that you talk to who are interested in this project and interested in learning more about it. And I would be happy to meet with them and discuss it with them. That would be another way that you could help. So those would be two other very tangible types of help that we need.
So who can they contact if they want to participate and help?
You're the one to be easiest to get to, and you can forward it to me.
No problem. So I'll just translate. אז מי שרוצה לעזור, להשתתף מעבר להשתתפות בקמפיין, אם זה דרך אנשים שאתם מכירים שרוצים לתמוך, אנשים שיש להם משאבים ורוצים לתמוך בקמפיין בצורה קצת יותר משמעותית, או אנשים שמובילי דעה, פוליטיקאים, מנהיגים, מובילי דעה, מנכ"לים של חברות וכן הלאה, שאפשר לחבר אותם ולהפגיש איתם כדי לרתום אותם למאמץ הזה. אז כל מי שרוצה לעזור מוזמן לפנות אליי, אני אחבר ביניכם לבינתים, כדי שנוכל לקדם את הדבר הזה שבעיניי הוא חשוב לכולנו.
תודה רבה.
Tim, so it's been a pleasure as always.
I love chatting with you. I love our little conversations.
Thank you. So I want to thank you both for your time now and for for doing this for a couple of years now and continuing to do that. It's really not something to take lightly. So I want to thank you for that.
And Eran, thank you for connecting so many people to their own purpose, because that actually is necessary for Israel to find its purpose. We need people from all walks of Israeli life to have their own purpose as well, or else the national purpose won't take. So the work that you're doing is actually a critical contribution to this process as well.
Thank you. Actually, it reminds me one question that was sent early on, which we missed it. Someone asked here, what's if Israel's purpose, or I'll ask again, is one purpose needs to be related to Israel's purpose? What's your take on that?
If an individual's purpose needs to be?
Yeah. So the question was, is my individual purpose, is it need to be connected to Israel's purpose?
Doesn't have to be, but it's going to tend to be the case for most Israelis that it already is. But it's not necessary, and it may not be purposeful for you personally to participate in Israel's purpose. Like you might just want to give a little money and forget about it or something. Other people, it might. So it kind of varies how aligned they are. Just like, your purpose and my purpose, Eran, are relatively aligned, which is why we work together on stuff. Both of us are called to bring purpose into business, for example. But there are other people who aren't called to that. So they're not on the same team, if you will. So some people listening to this will feel like very activated because their purpose is highly aligned with Israel's. And other people will be like, that's interesting, because their purpose is less aligned with Israel's. And that's fine. We don't need everyone's purpose to be aligned with Israel's purpose. Now, even if your purpose isn't aligned with Israel's, you might think it's a good idea for Israel to know its purpose, right? That might benefit you, even if you're not personally invested in participating in Israel manifesting its purpose. It might be better for you to live in a country that's living its purpose than one that isn't, even if that purpose doesn't have that much to do with you. That's how I feel. I'd much rather the US knew and was living its purpose, even if it had nothing to do with me. So it varies. And it's the same thing if you find the purpose of an organization. Some people's purposes are more aligned with the organization's purpose and some are less so. It's just natural.
Okay. Great. So thank you again, Tim, and I'm sure we'll soon.
All right. See you in a few weeks. Bye.
Bye-bye.